All right guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wasn't planning on doing any other 5th gen Camaro videos for at least a couple weeks, but this car come in, it's in for a tune. Seemed like it's a pretty interesting combination, so I figured I'd go in and show you. So let's go ahead on and get this car inside, and I'll pop the hood, show you what we've got going on, and then we'll get the tuning on this thing. All right, so let's get the hood up on this Camaro so you guys can see the combination that I thought was kind of strange. Now, again, this isn't abnormal as far as the combination goes. It was just a brand that really more than anything I've never seen on a 5th gen. Guys on the forums back in the day would occasionally use these, but I haven't seen one in a long time. So we've got a 2.8 liter Kenne Bell Mammoth Supercharger. Now, this Supercharger kit was done back in, I believe, like 2014, 2015, something like that. But the whole time it's been tuned MAF only, and apparently this car come in because the MAF harness had gotten into the belt or something. Maybe a mouse got it, but there's a wiring issue with the MAF. So anyways, we're going to retune this thing, and we're actually going to do, speed density as well. But we've got a 102 Nick Williams throttle body, 60-pound Deca injectors. We now have a red label CTS-V map. Car has ported PRC heads, Texas speed blower cam. We are on pump gas, and this is a stock bottom end L99 with a stock 6L80. Now it does have a triple disc Circle D converter in it, and we are on pump gas. Now this car at one time had made 725 wheel, but that was on race gas. So obviously it's not gonna do that on the Mustang dyno, but we'll see what we can get done on this thing. We'll have to keep it kind of tame due to pump gas and it being stock bottom end, but let's get this thing on the 4-post, look underneath it, and get on the dyno. All right, so let's go into the Camaro. Front tires look good. Got a set of headers, make clear. So they clear all the way around. Yeah, we're good. Got some just muffler shop exhaust. Not the greatest, but it'll be fine. It looks like it's sitting on the crossmember back here. So may have some, oh yeah, definitely gonna have some knock there. Oh, we got some flow masters on here. So maybe down a little bit on power between the crush bent and the flow master mufflers, but it should still do pretty good. Rear tires look good. Everything looks good. So let's get it down and get it on the dyno. All right guys, so we're up on the dyno now in the 2010 Camaro. And what I'm gonna do, I've already failed the mass airflow sensor, and so we are in speed density. This car, I am using a 2-bar operating system. So if you guys just want to take a quick glance, basically what you do is you just go up to OS, and there will be a button up here that says like apply 2-bar operating system. So you click that and then write it in. I've actually showed you guys in a couple other videos. But then what I also do is I also make sure the speed density air model, this patch is applied, manifold vacuum boost patch is applied, and the traction control patch is applied. Now I will tell you guys that I actually have had issues at the traction control patch. So if you get a car where it acts like it doesn't want to shift, or it just has some weird drivability issues that it did not have when it was on the 1-bar operating system, chances are you activated the traction control patch, and there are some operating systems that definitely have issues with it. So anyway, so this is what my VE table currently looks like. And the reason why I'm in speed density with 2-bar operating system is because the 5-inch MAF, they can be very turbulent. And so even though this car was on MAF only tuned before, doesn't necessarily mean that it drove good. So I want to swing through, I'm going to build the MAF curve from my speed density data, and then I will drive it in both modes and determine which one it drives better in. If it drives better in speed density only, then I'll fail the MAF completely. If it drives good in MAF only, then we'll run our hybrid mode, and I'll have the dynamic RPM set at 4,000 RPM, just like factory. So anyways, this is currently where the tune file is at. I've made some idle changes, so there's a pretty big drop right here, but that is just from where I'm trying to make sure idle is good. So I've already gone through and done all the injector data. All this stuff that I've done so far, I have showed you guys in other videos. I did rescale the spark air mass axis. So we are now going up to 1.84 gram. That right there should help us out where if the car ever ends up getting pulleyed or anything like that, like we've got that handled. So otherwise, I've gone through and basically built a base file just like what I've showed you guys in other boosted Gen 4 videos. But for right now, I'm just going to go ahead on and flash this thing. We're going to put it in the open loop. And I've showed you before, but I'll show you again. All you got to do is go under fuel, oxygen sensors, O2 readiness, engine coolant temp. And we will make this a number that is not achievable for the engine, which is just, I always do 493. So we're gonna load this tune file in and start the data logging process. All right, so currently warming the car up. You guys will see where I've already done some idle work. You'll see where my EQ error is pretty close. Obviously engine coolant temp's only 111 degrees, but dyno air, V, air, MAF, everything matches pretty close so far. So basically what we're gonna be doing today is, obviously I'm gonna dial in a VE table. I'm going to calibrate the MAF table at the same time. And I'm also going to do some fuel pump control module tuning. This car has a voltage booster on it, and so we usually will have to dial those in. So I will show you guys. Basically, it's kind of like what we would normally do where we're dealing with fuel trims, but this time you'd actually be dealing with fuel pump trims instead. So I'll go over that. I'm gonna go ahead on and get this car warmed up though, and we'll start the tuning process. All right guys, so car is up to temp. Let's go ahead on and start checking our speed density calibrations. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be sweeping through and we're gonna be watching commanded versus actual fueling. So up here, we're building a graph that shows you the error. So right now I'm rich. And now again, this is just one of my random VE tables that I had that was from a cammed Whipple Camaro, but this camshaft is a custom grind Texas Speed, and it's actually got really good manifold vacuum, so I'm assuming it's like a baby cam, but nobody seemed to know the specs on this thing. So anyway, so right now I am in third gear, steady brake on, and just kind of working my way through. Let's go down to second gear. So I can actually just kind of cruise on through right through here. Now, this dyno is one where I could actually have it hold a specific speed or a specific RPM, but I usually just do it this way. This way I can usually rough everything in pretty quick. So as you guys see, I'm just kind of holding 40, 45 kPa and working through this VE table. And this is going to give me a good generic shape. All right, that'll be good. So pretty much the way this works, and a lot of guys can argue with me about this, but this is what I feel. The engine itself, the shape of the VE table is going to be basically the same no matter which manifold air pressure you're at. It's going to be percentage based, but the shape is going to be the same. So realistically, as I shape this graph, whatever the curve looks like down low is going to be the same as what it looks like up high. And you can almost interpolate between the 2 points. So what I'll do is I will traditionally sweep through in a low gear, like first or second, and I'll get just a good bit of data. So right here, we're 3,800 RPM to 6,200 RPM. I can input this data in and get my general shape at the bottom part of the VE table. So I can develop my shape right here, which would be this area right here. And I could also know that pretty much whatever shape I have here is going to be the same shape as up here. So it makes it really easy just to kind of quickly run through these VE tables. A lot of guys will try to steady state and they will go through every single cell of every single RPM. And it's just, if I was on engine dyno, sure. But we are in an automatic transmission car. It's going to develop a lot of heat really fast. So what I will do is I'll rough in a VE table this way. Once my VE table is roughed in, we'll go and do wide open throttle pulls and get the EQ error as close to humanly possible. At the same time, will be developing my mass airflow sensor curve. And then we take it out on the street and verify everything is good. And that's where I'll leave it. So is there going to be some cells at, say, we'll say 142.5 kPa at 600 RPM that's not correctly tuned? Yep. I will do, basically I'll look at a trend line going up and I'll just develop the best curve I can. So anyways, that's what I do. So I'm going to go ahead on and input this data in that we just took. And we will get this shaped in. So obviously what you'll see is I'll just kind of show you real quick. So 1400 RPM, 35 kPa. So 1400 RPM to 35. Oh, I need to rescale my axis. So if you guys need to work on your axis, all you've got to do is while you're in your table, you just right click, you can hit column axis, copy labels, and that's going to copy these labels up here. So then I will go over to my EQ error versus VE table and I will just paste these in. And so now we have 37.5 kPa. So you guys can see that we're roughly 20% off 37.5 kPa from 1400 to 1800. So I'll just go 1400 to 1800 and I will go over here to 37.5 kPa and I will just multiply it times 0.8. and I'll just rough it in that way. So I'll just work through, same thing through here. I can just take all this data right here, 45, and we can just copy this. So from 1400 to 2800 at 45 kPa, 45, 1400, yep. And we'll just keep working through the data like this. So you guys will see the shape will start to develop, and I will work through here pretty quickly, and then we'll go to the wide open throttle stuff, and then we'll shape it, and it's going to be really, really, really close. So that's how I do it. And now obviously if we end up being on a full-time speed NC tune-up, I will be a little bit more critical on the VE table, but this is how I get the ball rolling when I'm starting off doing a tune. This is my method. You don't have to follow me in doing it this way, but this is how I'm able to manage to get a car tuned in a couple hours, and it is as close as what it is. So anyways, I'm going to dive into this VE table, and then I'll be right back. All right, so after roughing in the data from here, this is what the bottom part of the VE table looks like. And if you notice, it looks just like, honestly, a good solid torque curve. So this is essentially what it's going to look like up here, but we don't have that data yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assume some of this data up here is going to be pretty close. And so I'm going to leave this table just like it is. I'm not even going to load this into the car. And I'm going to go ahead on and we'll put the car in third gear and do a wide open throttle rip. And we're going to watch fueling there. And as long as we're a little bit rich, we'll stay in it. Obviously, if we're lean, we'll let off. And then what I do is once I have my wide open throttle V table, I will literally interpolate, which on this one will be interpolate horizontally, and that should get us roughed in. And then I'll kind of push through these medium cells just to verify. All right, and again, I want you guys to understand that I'm doing this my way, as I have tuned, combinations like this literally thousands of times. So when you're working on your car, it's gonna be a little bit harder for you just to jump right in like what I'm doing, but I'm letting you guys see the actual, like my version of the tuning process. So this is not a full-on instructional. I just want you to take bits and pieces of what I try to teach you guys in video and then use your own judgment, and you go with it that way. So anyways, dyno is in vehicle simulation mode. We're probably gonna spin. So I'm just gonna roll into third gear, and we're gonna watch air fuel ratio. So we definitely spun. As you guys see, air fuel ratio is actually pretty close, which tells me my VE table is gonna be pretty good. Hopefully the tires are already kind of warmed up. We'll try that again. Nope. All right, well, let's go to fourth gear. Fourth gear should help it stick a little bit. We're just gonna do a pull to we'll go like 4,500 RPM or so. So you guys will see that we're rich. Okay, I'll let off. So you guys will see that we're rich down low, and that is going to be similar to the data that we had at light load. So if you remember, I had to take off like 20% there. Obviously I don't have to take off as much here, but this thing's actually making some pretty decent amount of boost too. 185 kPa. We're 12 pounds. 12 pounds, 8 degrees right now. Okay, well, we'll get the fueling dialed in, and we'll start to get this V table worked in a little bit better. All right, so V table's been adjusted a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead on and do another wide open throttle pull. This time we're actually going to try to go all the way out in RPM. I really would love a third gear rip in this thing. I'm gonna try it again. We'll try a third gear, but just a little bit higher up in RPM. And actually, let me make sure the converter is 100% locked. All right, so we're gonna try it this way, and hopefully it sticks. That was much better. That'll get me much better off in the ballpark. All right, so I'll make some V table adjustments. I'm also going to make some adjustments to the fuel pump control module. should be it. I'm also what I'll go ahead on and do, I'm going to bump up the alternator voltage just like what we did in the other 5th gen videos with the flex fuel setups. I'm just going to try to get a little bit more fuel. This fuel pressure is definitely dropping some. As I'm watching the wideband, you guys see it trend lean pretty quick. Could be in the VE table, but it also is going to be a lot more associated with fuel pressure drop. So what I always do is when you're logging your car, if you have a fuel pump control module, you always want to log fuel pump commanded DC. You want to log fuel pump trim short term, fuel pump trim long term, instantaneous fuel flow estimate, and those right there will help you get the fuel pump control module dialed in. So long-term trims is just like long-term fuel trim, whereas 0.99 means it's pulling 1%. Short-term trims, it's just a multiplier, so this 1.16 means it's adding 16%. So then what I'll do, every time you flash the fuel pump control module, it'll reset the long-term trims back to 1.0. So I actually log the fuel pump short-term trims, and so this is actually just fuel pressure. So my table, my graph that I built, I'm logging the parameters fuel pump trim short term. You guys can do it however you want. If you want to turn it into a multiply by percent or whatever you want to do, you can do this however you'd like. Column axis is going to be fuel pressure, running kilopascal. This right here is a direct copy from the fuel pump control module. The row axis is going to be instantaneous fuel flow estimate in pound per hour. This right here is also a direct copy from the fuel pump control module. So basically you guys can see we're at 0 and fuel pressure is at 400 kPa. It's actually pulling 2% off short-term trims. And then as it goes up, now I kind of ignore the outliers. Like if you want to see what the fuel pump, where I'm making the adjustment, so you guys can kind of get an idea what we're talking about. So you're going to go under fuel system, fuel pump open loop DC. And so you guys will see how smooth this table is from GM. So when I see these outliers, I just ignore them. I mean, the fact that it's 18% off here versus this. So basically when we come through here, this is how it went. So usually what I'll do is I'll look at like the 350 or 400 kPa row, and I'll just make these changes, and I'll make these changes horizontally. So like right here where it's 1.17 from 333 down, I would come over here to this 333.3, and I would just do this 1.17 multiplier here, and I would just work in rows all the way down. So as we saw, we had 0.98. So I'll go right here now, because keep in mind this car has a voltage booster on it, as well as it's at the 2010, so the alternator's getting weak, the fuel pump's getting weaker. So I just always dial these in. So we got 2%, 95 to 119. And then you don't have to be super intricate with this, because again, you saw how smooth it was from GM. So we're just going to interpolate just like this, and I'll rough it in this way. So you guys can see where we're losing a little bit of fuel flow. I believe that's going to be because of the voltage drop. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to smooth it vertically. And we're just kind of getting it in the ballpark. And then, all right, so now that we've made the adjustment open loop DC, what I'll do is I'll always add my injector data in here. So we can just do pound per hour data, and this is going to be straight from your tune file. So I can just go under engine, and we're going to go do flow rate versus pressure. And I will copy this in. And then there is a limit on fuel pump control modules at 63. If you're not scaled to where you're below 63, I'll always just paste this in here and just let everything be 63.5. This helps to eliminate that P069E code that you'll sometimes get, as well as it's not going to completely eliminate the I think it's a 2635 insufficient fuel flow code, but it does greatly help it. So I'll do that. Minimum injector pulse width, we can go in and set it up as the same here. So on this vehicle, the decas are 0.125 minimum injector pulse width. Maximum engine boost, what I will do is I will do this in PSI just for the conversion rate. So right here, we'll just say we're going to be at a maximum, we'll do maximum of 13 PSI, and then I'll convert this over to KPA. So we got 90. So then 110 would be 100. This would be 110. And now this is an actual boost. 40. So it's going to be looking at PSI over baro. So obviously if baro is down this much, then this is how much boost we're going to equal out to. All right, so max desired pressure right here. I want to have at least a minimum. We know that factory, they're going to be targeting 400 kPa, which is 58 PSI. We're cool with 13 pounds of boost, so I'm just going to set this as a maximum of 71 PSI. Now, the ECU is still going to try to target the 400 kPa. Now, if you wanted to really dial this thing in to where it's like a one-to-one regulator, you could actually look at your boost curve, and you could look at your instantaneous fuel flow, and you could just dial this in to where you're always taking commanded and then putting that, whatever your boost is. Like say you got a Pro Charge vehicle and say at, I don't know, at say right here at 335 pound per hour of instantaneous fuel flow, say you're at 8 pounds, you could go onto this table and have it be 8 pounds right here above 400 kPa. Hope that makes sense. I wish GM would allow us a way of adding fuel pressure over, like, you know, basically like a one-to-one regulator would add, to where if we're at 13 pounds of boost, it's increased 13 PSI. Technically, if you want to go in here to the fuel flow rate table or something like that, you could actually probably dial it in like that. But either way, this is how I do it. So I'm cool with this thing asking for 71 PSI of fuel pressure, because that should give us roughly a 58 PSI delta when the belt's not slipping. So I'm going to go ahead on and load this in, and I will get back to you guys once we've got some data on the fuel pump control module. So also take note of injector duty cycle. So you guys will see 72. All right, let's just pick a random. All right, so 5,700 RPM. We're at 78% injector duty cycle. That number should go drastically down if this fuel pump's up to the task. Also, I'm noticing that we're getting a bunch of belt slip, or what I would assume to be belt slip. So we've been as high as 185 kPa. That hit, we were less, and you'll see it's actually dropping the whole way down. We're actually dropping down to like 7 pounds up top. So something is going on there. I guess I'll check the belt, but that's probably what it is. It's probably just belt slip. So what I've also done is I've also increased voltage for the alternator. As you guys can see, we are seeing right around 14.3 volts, and we can actually, this alternator should be good up to probably, I don't know, 15 volts, 15.2 volts. So that's going to open us up for more fuel flow at the fuel pump. So what I did was I go under serial request initial, and I move that up to 85%. Override DC max, I move up to 100%. Fuel system voltage minimum. So how it was set up where it's 12.5 volts across the board. So what I did was I had it to where when we are at lower power levels, this is essentially, I believe this is like an instantaneous fuel flow. But anyways, I basically duplicated one of the other GM tables where we're at 13.5 volts at low fuel flow rate, 15.5 volts up top. And then I made the airflow system voltage minimum 13 volts. So by doing that, again, we're just going to help voltage. It's going to help voltage at the ignition coils. So it's going to help ignition dwell, and that's going to help voltage at the fuel pump to allow for more fuel flow. So when I load this in, we should see a reduction of injector duty cycle. So we're going to write in the tune file. All right, so tune files are loaded in both the engine side and fuel pump control module side. We're going to go ahead on and start again. All right, we're locked in third gear. Hopefully it hooks this time. And I'm going to just be focusing on the wideband right here. Definitely getting massive belt slip again. EQ error looks better though. And injector duty cycle is down. So let's see. If you guys look, I mean, we picked up another, I mean, we're basically at 15 volts now. So that's pretty good. But this belt slip is definitely going to cause us some issues. So I guess I'm going to get under the hood and figure out what we can do to address that. All right, guys, so I'm going to do some digging. We've got just a standard black Gates belt. So this belt is not ideal for a supercharged application. It should at least have a green belt, preferably the RPM belts. But they've got a manual belt tensioner on this thing. And I don't know why. I mean, honestly, even being 6 rib with this pulley ratio, there should be no issue running just a traditional belt tensioner. So I'm just gonna do some more digging. Again, this is a Kenne Bell kit. I'm just not familiar with this thing. But as you guys saw, we're definitely slipping. I mean, we're going down from like 12.5 pounds of boost down to like, you know, what, 5, 6? So anyway, so I will be right back with you guys. I'm hoping I can finish this thing up today, but it's not looking good.